A Florida pastor recently gave a sermon talking about the national debt and what we can do to solve it. Now, keep in mind that we're currently dealing with $18 trillion in debt. So how does this pastor propose that we solve the issue? Take a look.
Friend, you want to talk about reducing the national debt? We could reduce it overnight if they would defund this evil organization and put it on the national debt. Man, we could get out of debt immediately if they would do that. And friend, when I call Planned Parenthood an evil organization, I don't stumble and I don't stammer and I don't apologize. I mean exactly what I say. You know, when I study some of the definitions of Bible words, I can define exactly what Planned Parenthood is. It's evil, it's wicked, it's ungodly, it's hellish, it's shameful. You look up the Bible definition of all of those words, and those words will describe exactly what Planned Parenthood is. Friend, it must go because Planned Parenthood is to children what ISIS is to Christians.
Planned Parenthood is to children what ISIS is to Christians. Okay, keep in mind that Planned Parenthood receives $540 million a year in federal funding. None of which goes to abortions because that's illegal, okay? There are only very, very rare cases where federal money can go toward abortions, and that's because Republicans have fought to make sure that that's the case. All right, so keep that in mind. $18 trillion in debt. Planned Parenthood gets $540 million a year. So I don't know, do you really want to trust a man who can't even do simple math?
Some simple math here, guys. I mean, really simple. Apparently, he loves to look up Bible definitions, but he can't use, a calculator.
Right.
That's too difficult.
Exactly.
I'm sorry. This is just it's blasphemous to me. The kind of logic that he's using and the hellish and evil. And what we're talking about is health care, right? This money is going towards women who are disadvantaged often and cannot receive cancer screenings, breast exams, STD screenings, the kind of health care. Do you want those women then? You really want them in your pocket if they're going to show up at the emergency room. Yep. Okay, that is it's unbelievable to me that people will not look. They want to take the thinnest slice of what Planned Parenthood is doing and attack it as evil and not look at the broad spectrum of services they provide that are so integral. 1 in 5 women, they estimate, visits Planned Parenthood for health care. Okay?
Look, I was one of them. I always felt really uncomfortable sharing my personal stories about this because it's my health. And
no, but it is important.
It is important.
Anna.
So I've never shared this story, but I'm going to because I think it's important. When I was working at a car dealership and I didn't have health insurance and I didn't have much money, I was making $10 an hour, I felt something in my breast, right? It was a lump and it scared the hell out of me. It was like a hard, painful lump. And so I wanted to go see a doctor, but every doctor I would go to was going to charge me hundreds of dollars to do a simple ultrasound just to make sure that I don't have cancer. Look, I get it, I was young, but also keep in mind that younger and younger women are finding that they have breast cancer. So I was freaking out. I couldn't find anyone that could give me the service I needed at an affordable price. So finally, I went to Planned Parenthood. And they took me right away. They didn't charge me a dime. They asked for a donation, and they figured out exactly what was wrong with me, right? And if it wasn't for Planned Parenthood in that situation, I don't know what I would do. I would probably panic. I probably wouldn't get the care that I needed. I felt uncomfortable talking to family members about it because I didn't want to worry them. And my mom's dealing with her own health issues. And so that's what Planned Parenthood does for a massive amount of people in this country, okay? They give them a peace of mind. They give them the health care that they need and can't afford otherwise. So for this man to stand there and say that Planned Parenthood is evil is so misguided and so ignorant, and it frustrates me so much.
It's so bombastic and ridiculous, and the idea of equating them with ISIS is so disgusting.
It's insulting to the victims of ISIS.
Oh yeah, I was like, does ISIS have a division where they give out breast cancer screenings? I wasn't aware of that. I mean, it's ridiculous. And it's the kind of language, of course, that the conservative, super right-wing, ultra religious sect that's on this side of the debate, the pro-life side of the debate, they're so loud. And I even thought, when I was reading this and watching the video, I was like, do we want to give this guy any more airtime?
Yeah.
Like, does he even deserve for us to respond? And he does, in that we need to respond. Women, especially who are using Planned Parenthood services, 1 in 3 women, probably before menopause, and this is a study from the Guttmacher Institute, and I read this in a New York Times article, will visit Planned Parenthood for an abortion. Now, there is silence is a stigma here, right?
Right.
Women do not talk about it. Women do not want to talk about the fact, and that creates a taboo, I think it's important to talk about all the other services they provide,
Right.
but don't get it twisted. There are women who are also taking part in terminating their pregnancies, and it's not always the same narrative you're always hearing where it was this, I am ashamed of that decision, or I should be made to feel ashamed because of men like this who are going to stand on a pulpit and tell me I'm evil.
Right. And the vast majority of women who get an abortion, first of all, aren't doing it for fun. They're not doing it because they're sexually promiscuous and they're just messing around and they think abortions are just fun to do.
They're not fun.
It's a difficult decision for a woman to make, and whether they want to believe it or not, and I'm talking about the religious right, after it's done, there is a tremendous amount of relief that they feel. And it's because the people who go out looking to have an abortion do it because they're desperate and they know that they can't give a baby the life that he or she needs, okay? So instead of bringing it to term where it actually is a living, breathing, viable human being, they decide to make a decision when it's a zygote, when it's not viable outside the womb, and that is something that's been protected by our Supreme Court since 1973. So if the religious right feels uncomfortable with that, there are other countries that they can move to where women don't have the same reproductive rights that we have in the United States.
It's true. And if they're uncomfortable with women having children, going through and having an abortion, well, then probably we need access to contraception that's
a great
is affordable.
point.
And you know where you can get that? Planned fucking Parenthood. Okay? Like, they refuse to recognize, like, the entire breadth of services that this organization provides. And they want to focus on one, and they want to have one insidious debate constantly about evil versus good. And, I'm like, it's very difficult to argue with something that is founded in, it's completely irrational. But I think all women really need to start telling their personal stories and feel empowered to share that narrative, because it's the only way we're going to change and destigmatize and actually personalize something that's been politicized or turned into some sort of freaky religious parable, which is not what we're talking about here.
That's exactly right. And by the way, women are not the only people who take advantage of the services that Planned Parenthood offers. They do STD screenings that are so affordable, men and women rely on them for that.
And I'm sure there are millions of men who are very glad that the women in their lives made the decisions they did through Planned Parenthood, whatever that is, contraception, breast cancer screenings, or abortions, any of those things. But you don't hear those men entering this debate either. Everyone's afraid to talk about it.
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think that we need to share our stories so we have people who understand the importance of an organization like Planned Parenthood.